The Colt M1911, a gun that changed the course of American history, revolutionizing how its people fight, defend, and survive. It was the weapon that won battles, saved lives, and became a symbol of strength. A pistol so reliable, so powerful, it was adopted as the standard sidearm of the U.S. military for over 70 years. Its reputation grew over the decades, making its way into the hands of soldiers, gangsters, law enforcement, and even assassins. But how did this gun become America's most legendary pistol? Let's dive into its history, the innovations it brought, and the legacy it left behind. To understand why the Colt 1911 came into existence, we must go back to the turn of the 20th century. The year is 1899, and the U.S. Army is embroiled in a brutal conflict in the Philippines. American soldiers are fighting against the Moro warriors, a fiercely determined group known for their relentless fighting tactics. The Moro fighters had an astonishing ability to keep coming, even after sustaining multiple gunshots from the standard .38 caliber revolvers the military carried. It wasn't enough to stop them. They would charge toward American soldiers, closing the distance with terrifying speed, hacking with their blades, before collapsing from blood loss. The problem was clear. The U.S. Army needed a weapon that could stop an enemy in their tracks with a single shot. A gun with real stopping power. That's when the military turned to one of the most legendary firearms designers in history, John Moses Browning. They needed a semi-automatic pistol, chambered in .45 ACP, a round specifically designed to hit hard and keep an enemy down. Browning, with his genius for design, delivered a pistol unlike anything the world had seen before. The Colt M1911, a masterpiece of craftsmanship, featuring short recoil operation, an all-steel frame, and a 7-round magazine. The U.S. Army put Browning's creation to the test in 1910 with what would become one of the most grueling weapons trials ever conducted. The military fired 6,000 rounds through a single Colt 1911 in just 2 days. The result? No malfunctions, no misfires, nothing but flawless performance. Meanwhile, the Savage Model 1907, a competitor, jammed 37 times during the same test. It was clear which pistol was the winner. On March 29, 1911, the U.S. Army officially adopted Browning's design as its standard-issue sidearm. The Colt M1911 had entered the world stage, and history would never be the same. The Colt 1911's first major test came during World War I. In 1917, American troops were sent to the trenches of Europe, armed with this powerful new weapon. In the brutal conditions of trench warfare, the Colt M1911 proved to be an invaluable asset. One of the most famous stories from this time comes from Sergeant Alvin York. In a close-quarters encounter with German soldiers, York found himself facing a German machine gun nest. Armed with nothing but his Colt 1911, York made short work of 6 enemy soldiers, taking them out with just 6 rounds. His actions earned him the Medal of Honor, and the Colt 1911's reputation as a reliable and deadly weapon began to spread. When World War II arrived, the Colt 1911 found itself in the hands of American soldiers once again. From the beaches of Normandy to the jungles of the Pacific, the Colt 1911 was a constant companion for U.S. forces. But the stories of war were only part of the Colt 1911's legacy. While soldiers carried the 1911 into battle, another group of individuals was also putting it to use: criminals. In the 1920s and 1930s, organized crime surged in America. Prohibition turned bootleggers into millionaires, and gangsters like Al Capone, John Dillinger, and Babyface Nelson didn't just rely on Tommy guns and shotguns. They carried Colt 1911s as their personal backup weapons. Why? Because the Colt 1911 was powerful, concealable, and reliable. Dillinger, infamous for his daring bank robberies, was known to dual-wield custom Colt 1911 pistols during shootouts with law enforcement. Babyface Nelson, another notorious gangster, used a converted full-auto Colt 1911 to kill FBI agents in a violent roadside battle. Even after the rise of more modern firearms, the Colt 1911 remained popular in the streets. It became a staple among law enforcement, FBI agents, and private detectives. And it wasn't just criminals and police officers who carried the Colt 1911. It was also used by elite military forces. Throughout the years, special operations teams, including Navy SEALs, Delta Force, and Marine Force Recon, have trusted the Colt 1911 in the field. The reason? There's no substitute for the stopping power of a .45 ACP round when lives are on the line. This is just the beginning of the Colt 1911 story that spans over a century and continues to unfold today. In 1985, the U.S. Army officially replaced the Colt 1911 with the Beretta M9, a semi-automatic pistol with a 15-round capacity. However, even as the military moved on, Special Forces units refused to let go of their Colt 1911s. Navy SEALs, Delta Force, and other elite units continued to carry customized versions of the 1911. Why? Because sometimes the old ways are the best. In fact, some of the deadliest military operations in history were carried out by soldiers armed with Colt 1911s, including the raid that killed Osama bin Laden. The Colt 1911 was more than just a weapon. It became an icon, synonymous with American strength, resilience, and power. This legacy didn't stop with military and criminal use. It spilled over into popular culture, especially Hollywood. In the 1970s, a movie that became a cultural phenomenon helped solidify the Colt 1911's place in American history. The film was Dirty Harry, starring Clint Eastwood as the tough-as-nails detective Harry Callahan. While Harry's .44 Magnum revolver made a lasting impression, the Colt 1911 quickly followed as the gun of choice for action heroes. By the 1980s and 90s, the Colt 1911 became a standard feature in the hands of Hollywood's most iconic characters. John McClane, in Die Hard, wielded a 1911 to save an entire skyscraper. James Bond, in Skyfall, used a customized 1911 to take down his enemies. And John Wick, in the legendary action series, employed twin 1911s for some of the deadliest gunfights in modern film. But it wasn't just film that immortalized the Colt 1911. Video games like Call of Duty, Battlefield, and Resident Evil ensured that every new generation of gamers was introduced to the power and precision of this American icon. Now, decades after its introduction, the Colt 1911 remains one of the best-selling handguns in America. Despite being over 100 years old, it continues to be a weapon of choice for competition shooters, military personnel, and civilians alike. Custom 1911s can sell for thousands of dollars, and many Americans still carry one for self-defense. It's a reminder that while newer guns may be lighter and hold more rounds, there's nothing quite like the feel of a Colt 1911 in your hands. For over a century, this pistol has refused to fade into obscurity. Whether in the heat of battle, the chaos of a gunfight, or in the hands of law enforcement, the Colt 1911 remains an unmatched symbol of American power and resilience. And so, the question remains, is the Colt 1911 the greatest handgun ever made? The military replaced it with modern pistols, but special forces still use it. Hollywood made it a legend, but real gunfighters still swear by it. Millions of Americans still buy, shoot, and carry it. After wars, gang wars, FBI shootouts, and action movies, one thing is clear. The Colt 1911 is more than just a gun. It's a symbol of power, a symbol of America, a weapon of history. And no matter how many new guns come and go, the Colt 1911 will always be here, because legends never die. Liked this? Subscribe now so you don't miss anything coming next.